This is the Final Whistle podcast from the Wrexham AFC media team.
The final score, Wrexham 2, Harrogate Town 0. At last we scored past them, and Wrexham go through to the first round. At last we won in the FA Cup as well, ending the longest run in the club's history. 6 games in the FA Cup without a win. It was a game which saw Sam Ricketts make 5 changes from the team that played last Saturday, and a couple of tactical ones as well, and one which ultimately turned on the introduction, I think, of Mike Fondop, but 2 very high quality goals which settled the tie, and by the end of it Wrexham were looking rather good. So those changes, amongst others, saw Kevin Roberts playing at centre back, which was an interesting move. We've often wondered if he could be used there. Well, he was very impressive. We also saw James Jennings coming back from injury, which was a really, really nice thing to see. And Wrexham also brought up front Jordan Maguire, Drew Stewart Bevan and Rakeal Pike again into that more familiar front three. It was tight early on. Wrexham had to survive the first 5 minutes a bit, didn't really get going well, and then had a nice little spell, got the crowd, which was all concentrated on the Mull Road stand, involved, and went close twice in the space of a couple of minutes. A good diagonal by Walker, finding Pike on the left. He did really well. Nice first touch, cut inside, drove into the D. Just overran it when it looked like he might pull the trigger, but laid off nicely to Young, and he struck a good early strike from 20 yards out, aiming for the bottom right corner. It was well struck, typically, and the keeper was had his feet planted to the ground, wrong-footed, but it went about a foot wide of the right post. Then a really nice, crisp piece of one-touch passing. Bevan popping it back to Maguire Drew, who fed it through the middle. Younger made a great run, lovely third man running, but Belshaw had a high starting position, got off his line quickly and did well to beat the striker to it. Then it sort of changed around a little bit. Wrexham, like I said, first 20 odd minutes, we're feeling good. We're working the ball around well. The midfielders looking in control. But Harrogate started to regain control. Again, like on Saturday, just causing problems with their set pieces. A free kick swung in the 26th minute should have led to a goal. It was nodded down into the goal mouth. Looked to be a certain close range tapping at the far post. Thielestow somehow managed not to apply that touch. It looked to me like he actually carried on and collided with the post instead. There was another opportunity when Emmett did brilliantly on the edge of his own area under pressure to turn Rakeal right and start an excellent 3-on-3 breakaway, which ended with Carrington making a good interception. And Wrexham also had to breathe a sigh of relief a minute later. Admittedly, the linesman's flag went up to deny this, a close-range volley, which was magnificently saved by Leighton. Leighton will be sorry that the linesman put his flag up, because it was a brilliant stop, moving to his left, a close-range 6 yards out volley, back across him, really nailed, and he managed to stick his right hand out and make a brilliant save. The half ended with good free kick efforts from either side. Maguire Drew hitting a 25-yarder, heading for the top left corner. A really good tip over by Belshaw, and then at last minute, Leasley showing what he could do from a free kick, 20 yards out, drilling it around the wall, but just wide at the left post. Second half started scrappily. Harrogate were the first to really put pressure on, forcing a succession of 3 corners, which caused some problems. One of them swung to the far post, appeared to have set Howe up with an easy headed finish, but he was beaten to it by a brave header by Roberts, who put the ball behind for a corner. And then from the third one, Howe did manage to get up and win the header 6 yards out, but it was a bit too high for him. He met it with power, but planted it well over the bar. Wrexham's first opportunity of the half came, and Bevan made an excellent flick. Maguire Drew chasing it down the right hand side, got to the corner flag first, launched it across, quite a lot of height on it. Rakeal Wright arriving and marked at the far post, got up well, but headed it down into the ground. I know they say you should head it downwards, but he headed it down too much into his feet, took all the pace off it, and it was an easy save for the keeper. But then came the big change. In fact, it was interesting to see the juxtaposition between 2 similar changes made at the same time. Both sides bringing on a big target man. Wrexham bringing on Fondop, and Harrogate bringing on Mark Beck. Fondop's impact would be massively greater than Beck's. That's not, to be fair, an attack on Beck, but the fact is that Fondop's impact, as he pinned the centre-backs, started to bring players in really well, had a massive effect on the match. Wrexham started to hold the ball up in Harrogate's half a lot more consistently, and as a result, Harrogate just weren't getting close enough to feed decent service to Beck, who really wouldn't get many headers and duels to challenge for until the closing stages, when his side were 2 goals down. Fondop immediately getting involved with a long ball forwards to him on the edge of the area, took it well, span, and drove a powerful shot, which was too straight and helped by the keeper, but he was starting to cause issues. Wrexham soon afterwards took the lead, and it was a screamer. A corner on the left-hand side, Luke Young ripped in a really good delivery to the near post 6 yards out, and there was a Keel Wright. He's never scored for Wrexham. Well, this is a good way to get off the mark. A magnificent, beautifully struck overhead kick, which rocketed into the net. Brilliant finish to give Wrexham the lead. 332 minutes we played against Harrogate before finally we managed to get a goal past them. And Wrexham's tails now were really up, and it looked like they could finish a tie off there and then. A couple of minutes later, Young ripping a great free kick, and it flew across the face of goal. Fondop met it 6 yards out with power. It was blocked well in front of goal. Fondop, and only Fondop, shouted for the penalty for handball. I've got to say, the defender's arm was out. Not totally sure whether he actually made proper contact with his hand or if it came off his body onto his hand, but I would like to see it again. It was half cleared, and Walker did well. A good first touch, took it past his man, and from 25 yards out, he really struck it terrifically cleanly. It was pretty straight at the keeper, but it was too hot to handle, span out of his grasp, and for a moment it looked like the backspin might just have embarrassed him and sent it back beyond him, but he was able to grab hold of it as he lay on the floor. Worryingly for Wrexham, they then picked up an injury, a cross coming in, a Keel Wright diving in and picking up a head injury. The fair play to the goalkeeper Belshaw. He and the referee were both immediately calling the physio onto the pitch. They could see that he'd taken a serious knock, and the game was held up. 8 minutes would have to be added on as a result of the treatments to Keel Wright received. Thankfully, he looked conscious throughout, and he was able to get up and walk off the pitch, so that was good news at least. But a blow to Wrexham, and a blow as well, because not only did they lose a player who was growing in confidence as the match went on, but as well the momentum was very much of Wrexham at that point, and it just slowed things down a little bit. There was a spell in the game then when Wrexham's momentum was lost. They still were in control of the game, but they didn't have that attacking fury which they'd showed previously. They started to regain it with a quarter of an hour left. Fondop again doing well. It's holding the ball up, working it across to Carrington. Carrington on the right hand side sending a smashing cross to the far post. Fondop getting it well, beating his man, heading it back across the keeper. It just scraped the post and went behind for the goal kick. A minute later though, it was 2-0. Again Fondop getting credit for his hold up play, and again an excellent finish. Luke Young playing an early ball up to Fondop, who did really well down the right hand side to hold it up. You just feel his decision-making in these positions is not that great, but this time it really was, and you wonder whether the work that Wrexham would be doing with him was paying off, because he received it cut inside. There was a possibility to shoot, and I think in the past he would have just had a go anyway to see what happened, but instead he carried it on, took it when he could see there wasn't a chance for a shot, held it up, waited for the run of Young to the edge of the area, fed a good rolled ball to him, and as it rolled across him, Young finished superbly with a powerful side-footed finish into the bottom left corner. Wrexham 2-0 up and with breathing space. And although Harrogate did try to strike back quickly, Leasley putting in a free kick, which Kitching met powerfully from close range, but too straight, well held by Leighton. And then another close range save from a header, this time Muldoon ripping in a cross, Beck 6 yards out, getting the better of Roberts, meeting it with power, but Leighton doing well to parry it above his head. Despite that, Wrexham looked pretty much in control. You never really felt that goal was coming for Harrogate. In fact, Wrexham went close themselves with a very good run by Jennings down the left-hand side. And then a pullback cleverly to Pike, who from the edge of the area dumped his man on his backside, got it into his right foot, tried to rip a finish into the top corner and just missed the target. There was one final opportunity for Harrogate, although only after their goalkeeper had thrown something of a half-line tantrum after not being allowed to go forwards for a corner. It was a Kerry free kick, 25 yards out, which he got over the wall, made good contact with it, but was never going to come down in time and soared about a yard over the bar. That was in the 97th minute anyway, and by then the tie was beyond them. Wrexham through to the next round against Weston-super-Mare. For more analysis, have a listen to Harry Wright and myself and our post-match conversation on Mixlr.
This is the Final Whistle podcast from the Wrexham AFC media team.
Referee still allowing play to continue. It drops on the edge of the box and it's launched wildly behind for a goal kick. That was that from Leasley. And there is the final whistle. Wrexham have ended the longest run without wins in the FA Cup in their history. A 2-0 win over Harrogate. They've also ended a run of over 3.5 games against Harrogate without scoring. 2 blockbusters deciding it, and well, ultimately, Harry, that second half performance, Wrexham were deserving winners.
Yeah, a much better team in the second half. Sort of for a portion of the first half, they were the better team, but as the half grew on, they kind of tailed off a little bit, and Harrogate grew into the game. But yeah, the second half, especially the Fondop substitution, is, you know, he didn't score, but he appeared to be the one who made the difference. He just, we just were a better team with him on the pitch. I don't know if it was the way he played with the other players, or the fact that he was just a more, I think we were lacking that sort of central figure. Like Bevan and Pike were able to just, rather than worry about what they were doing, they were able to just sort of get the ball to him in a sense, and that kind of worked really well, I think, and he linked up really well. I think with Maguire-Drew on the pitch, there was sort of, it sounds stupid, too many sort of creative players up front, and the fact that they were all kind of creating but not really, they needed someone to just have some direction in a sense, and Fondop, I think, gave that.
And to pin the centre-backs and give a focal point to the attack.
Yeah.
And I've got to say, he held the ball up and brought players into play extremely well. And he made a big difference. I'm just looking down the pitch. I'm not quite sure what was going on then. Sam Ricketts is on the pitch shaking hands with the Harrogate players. Looks very jovial and happy. Although the first player I noticed him talking to, Falkingham, the captain, he was talking to him a very long time, and I wasn't sure if it was friendly or not, if I'm totally honest. He's now going and congratulating his own players. I'm not quite sure what was going on. At one point, it seemed Falkingham walked away during a handshake, and Ricketts pulled him back, and I'm not totally sure whether that was friendly or not. Anyway, maybe it was. Everything subsequently was very friendly between him and the Harrogate players. Number of good performances. Roberts in a different position did well. Laneton made good saves.
Yeah.
Young and Wright were good in midfield.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I mean, are you going to ask me for a man of the match in a minute?
I'll do it now if you want.
I mean, I'm going to say Stuart Bevan, because I don't think there was one specific player today that kind of, I know Fondop kind of, he did have an effect, but I think overall, I think Bevan was probably the most just out there dangerous threat. Like, Fondop was very good at dragging players into position or dragging their centre backs out, but I'm going to just sort of, I think it'd be too easy to give it to Mike Fondop, so I'm going to give it to Stuart Bevan.
He worked very hard, didn't he, Bevan, as he always does. He's tireless in the way he runs at defenders, occupies them, tries to get in the channels and running behind them, and there are a number of times when he battled away and made something out of nothing. It's typical Bevan, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, I think that was it. Sort of Maguire-Drew and Pike are kind of capable of that little bit of magic, but will fade away in the meantime, whereas Bevan will always be there. He's like that consistent, but it's almost a bit like Paul Rutherford, really, in the fact that he's just sort of always there, and you know, this ever-present threat, and I think he was very good this evening.
I thought Pike was very good in the first half hour, very lively, caused problems for Burrell, cutting inside him, linked up very well with Bevan.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see that combination developing. I feel sorry for Maguire-Drew, who had some nice little flashes early on, but he looks a little short in confidence. Perhaps his touch is letting him down.
Yeah.
He's trying things a bit, trying too much sometimes, you felt, you know?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, sometimes it's the easiest thing to do is literally just take the ball and run. Don't try and be clever with it. Just take your man on, and that's it. And I think at times, you know, the first half in the box, where I think he definitely had a chance to shoot, and he was just being a bit clever. And it's one of those where it's like, you don't need to be that clever. You just take the shot. So yeah, I think you're probably right, where he's just sort of maybe unlucky, even in a sense, where it just didn't fall for him.
Yeah, I felt for him. You sort of feel, I want something to happen for him.
Yeah.
Something to fall for him just nail one. Like the one he had an opportunity in the first half where he just didn't take the shot on.
Yeah.
And he just thought he just wants to make sure, and I just want him to nail in the top corner and get that confidence going again, because he's a supremely talented player and clearly a match winner at this level. I like Young and Wright in midfield. Young maybe stood out more than Wright in some senses. I thought he worked extremely hard and linked play and was very controlling in his use of possession.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Young is a very good passer of the ball. He's very able to sort of pick out the run of somewhere else, whereas I think Wright is sort of more simple with his passing range.
Yeah.
But in the midfield,
he needs to be. I agree.
Yeah, But that is sort of the defensive key. I think at times, if you have too many creative attacking players in the midfield, you end up with a sort of a bit of a wet midfield where it just doesn't have any, gumption.
Exactly.
Trying to think of like a not clever word here. I come up with gumption.
Rice needs to keep it simple.
Yeah.
I don't think he's got the range of passing to be otherwise. And there was that point in the first half where he broke through the middle, and if he had the composure on the ball to layer off, we would have been in. But he's not really that. Yeah. He's not that final third player. He said of the man who scored a fantastic kick. And then of course he's about defensive elements in midfield. You got Walker. But Walker and Lawler did what they've done ever since they've come into the club, really. I mean, it was just a stereotypical performance from both. Lawler looked vulnerable once when players ran at him, and Leasley cut inside and beat him. But it's just solid defender, wins his headers, wins his tackles. And Walker is just classic. His use of the ball, occasionally he'll nail a really difficult pass, but his use of the ball can be sloppy. Yeah. But he carries the ball quite well, and his defensive work, his intercepting is very pleasing. He's sort of like an attacking defender, if that makes sense, or like a ball playing. I don't know what the right word is. He's kind of like Lawler's sort of the no nonsense. Just bang, clear the ball comes down, he just clears it straight back again. Remember, Walker's the guy who cleared the stand on the volley when he could have put up to the halfway line, remember? But that's it. But Walker's sort of, just for a second, it was like a sort of puppy dog style footballer, just the excitement of being a footballer, and he forgot that he was playing in a professional match and just thought, oh, there's a football, I can smash that a hell of a long way. I like to think that he just did that and just went, have it. Exactly. It's a very satisfying noise, I'd imagine the sound of a bowling ball being dropped off a skyscraper would make when it hit the ground, when it left his foot. He really gave that a thud, didn't he? I did like the sort of, there was this, the whole stadium had that collective, why has he done that? He just cannons it out. I used to be obsessed as a young lad, and beyond that, I suppose, with the idea of clearing the old Mould Road stand. Because that, although it wasn't as big as this Mould Road stand, it was set further back, and it was extremely difficult to clear it and put the ball in the street. And I actually remember the first player who went on to coach at Everton. He's still there, Matt Bound, playing for Stockport, did it, and I remember just my jaw dropped because I'd have been watching Wrexham for a good 10-15 years before, maybe even more actually, before I saw someone manage that. But Walker, I reckon, would have been a proper contender to achieve that. Was one of the best clearances I've ever seen, or one of the worst maybe. I don't know. It was a bit of both, wasn't it, really? I liked Roberts. I thought, that's not his position, and we wondered whether he could be used as a centre back, and we've not really seen much of it. He did very well, I thought, really fighting for the ball in the box. And even against Beck, who obviously is going to pull onto him because he got such a height and size advantage, he still fought well with him and wasn't completely bullied by him. I was impressed by that. Yeah, Roberts, he's another one of those players where there's no fuss so much, no flashiness necessarily, just every game is like a 7 out of 10. And it's kind of like, I've only seen one game this season where he didn't play well, and we still won that. And he's just one of those players where I think he's underrated, but one of the best players at the club, really. I really like Roberts. I think he's a quality full-back, and I think you see there he's a combative defender. He's a natural defender. He wants to fight and defend his penalty area, but he's also good going forwards, and I'm glad this year he's been given more scope to do that. Then speaking of which, at right back rather than him was Carrington. Carrington's just such a good professional. He played very well defensively and going forwards. Well, I've always thought about this as Carrington is like the second best player in any position. Like he's not the best player in any position, but he actually genuinely impressed me at right back. Just when he'd get to a position and he'd put a cross in, and every single time, and maybe this is doing him a disservice, but every single time I was like, wow, that was a really good cross. And then maybe I should think of, well, of course he's going to do a good cross, he's good at that, but it just seemed to surprise me every time, and I always forget, actually, Carrington's quite a good player. Exactly. because he's just sort of like the backup player, like the model professional. You always forget that actually he is a good player. That's why he's been here for a long time now. You just look at games like the Solihull game earlier in the season where just across the team they didn't perform well. Carrington was still Carrington. Carrington was the best player by a country mile in that match, just because he's just reliable and solid and just keeps doing the good things that he does well. And then Jennings on the other side today, I thought looked a bit ropey early on. He's coming back from injury. Once he settled, I thought he did well. I think honestly this is probably one of the, I'm always a little bit critical personally
of Jennings, simply because the way if I were a manager, I would not be comfortable with sort of how attacking he is. I prefer the likes of Kevin Roberts, who are better defensively than going forwards. Maybe that's just me, but I think he did actually impress me defensively this evening, and I think he made a real difference. I think sometimes I feel he leaves the back open a little bit, whereas this evening I didn't have that worry at all.
No, I did well, and then Langton and goal made some good stops.
Yeah.
Sadly, the best one was the one that didn't count because the offside flag was up, but he made a worldy save, changing direction to save a well-struck volley from 6 yards out.
Well, he's got incredible reaction times. It's just they seem to have so many chances where, admittedly, you could say they were straight at the keeper, and you'd say you should have to save that, but he still managed to parry them away or catch them out of thin air with, in a shot that he really didn't have any time to think about, basically, even if it's at him or not. So yeah, he's overall, actually, to be honest, it kind of it's one of those games where, looking back at it, you think, actually, that was a really good performance.
Yeah.
Even if perhaps at times, especially in the first half, towards the end of the first half, you're thinking, well, we're under the cosh a bit here, we're not doing so well. But in hindsight, we forget that Harrogate are high flying in the National League, and we've pretty soundly beaten them.
Well, I've got to say, I mean, I felt after I'd finished the podcast last Saturday, I reassessed and wondered if I'd been a little harsh in our performance. I was disappointed because I think we got tactically wrong in the first half, and I felt that the game looked fairly low quality. But when I stopped and took a bit of perspective on it, I thought, well, to be honest, this is a team right up at the top of the table, and we'd gone there and got the draw, and I should have given us maybe a little more credit than I did last Saturday. And then looking at this, there were spells when Harrogate got on top, but they're a good team, and they should be. But the second half, we took complete control, and that was a really pleasing outcome.
Yeah.
I mean, you're saying about Langton as well, just to go back to it. I mean, that's 5 clean sheets out of 6 now for Langton, and 17 games, 12 clean sheets. Woof. Yeah,
no, he's sort of flown under the radar, actually, about genuinely how good he is. I think it's almost the fact that no one's mentioned it is almost a positive comment on how good he's been. Because, Dunn had his supporters, but he had his naysayers as well, whereas I haven't really seen any naysayers. No one even mentions Langton because he just is good.
He looks very solid. It's really pleasing, that, isn't it? Obviously, defence takes credit for clean sheets as well, and the amount of injuries you've had in the back four. It's impressive that we've managed to keep teams at bay so long, but Langton deserves a lot of credit, and statistically, this is a remarkable start to his Wrexham career. We should stop broadcasting, shouldn't we, really? And go home to our families.
Yeah.
But can I just say, the two most pleasing elements of this, Wrexham winning and getting themselves that cup tie, that nice journey to the southwest, and the fact that you used the phrase "no fuss, no muss," which pleased me enormously. I've got to be honest, Harry. I thought that was top quality stuff, old chap, and I'm very pleased with that.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Good stuff. So Wrexham win. Wrexham go through to the first round. It's been a while since we've said that, isn't it? And as I said, Wrexham end their longest ever winless run in the FA Cup. Weston-super-Mare awaits. Even Mark Griffiths and Harry Wright.
This is the Final Whistle podcast from the Wrexham AFC media team.